A quiet black student becomes the target of a ruthless school bully, facing humiliation in front of silent onlookers. Just as things escalate, an unexpected ally steps in, challenging the bully and shifting the school's power dynamic. As tensions rise, hidden truths emerge, leading to consequences that change everyone involved. A school hallway, lined with rows of lockers, buzzed with the usual noise of students moving between classes. But today, a different kind of silence filled the air. A tense, expectant hush as eyes turned toward a confrontation unfolding near the center of the corridor. Tyler, the school's most feared bully, stood tall, his stance radiating dominance. As he blocked the path of Ava, a quiet yet exceptionally bright black student. He smirked, his voice dripping with mockery as he ridiculed her in front of the gathering crowd. His words cut deep, each insult aimed at belittling her presence, making her feel small in a place where she had every right to exist. Ava kept her chin high, refusing to let him see her break, but the weight of his words pressed down on her, and the whispers around them only added to her isolation. But just when Ava thought she was alone in this fight, someone she least expected changed. Everything. The tension crackled in the air as Tyler prepared to escalate, the crowd unsure whether to intervene or continue watching in uncomfortable silence. And then, in a moment that would shift the balance of power in the school forever, a voice cut through the tension. A figure stepped forward, challenging the unchallenged, breaking the unspoken rule of silent complicity. What happened next would leave everyone stunned. Before we dive in, comment where you're watching from and subscribe for more powerful real-life stories. The school hallway was a place of unspoken rules, a carefully maintained hierarchy where a few ruled while the rest either fell in line or chose silence. Lockers lined the walls, their metal doors slamming shut as students moved between classes, but despite the usual hum of chatter, an underlying tension always lurked beneath the surface. It was an environment where bullying wasn't just ignored. It was tolerated. No one wanted to be the next target. No one wanted to challenge Tyler. Tyler was the school's undisputed troublemaker. Tall, broad-shouldered, and always carrying an air of smug confidence, he thrived on fear. He didn't just pick on people, he crushed them. His words carried weight, his presence alone was enough to make others shrink away. He targeted Ava not just because she was quiet, but because she represented everything he resented: intelligence, resilience, and a strength that didn't need to be loud to be powerful. And more than that, she was different. Someone he could easily single out without fear of repercussions. Tyler thrived on control, but deep down, his dominance masked insecurities he'd never admit to. Ava, on the other hand, had spent most of her school years trying to stay invisible. She was bright, excelling in academics far beyond most of her peers. She carried herself with quiet confidence, but confrontation wasn't in her nature. Books were her escape, her safe space. She believed that if she just kept her head down, ignored the taunts, and avoided conflict, she would be safe. It had worked before. Until now. Liam had always been on the sidelines of these unspoken battles. A well-liked athlete with a solid reputation, he had never been the type to stir trouble. He saw the way Tyler treated people, heard the whispers about the things he had done, but like everyone else, he had looked away. It wasn't his fight, but today something felt different. Today he couldn't ignore it. He wasn't sure what had changed. Maybe he was tired of the silence, or maybe he had seen too many people suffer while others stood by and did nothing. Whatever it was, As Tyler took a step closer to Ava, a cruel smirk curling on his lips, Liam felt his pulse quicken. He saw the way students exchanged nervous glances, some whispering under their breaths, others pretending not to notice. But he noticed. Ava gripped her books a little tighter, her posture stiff as she prepared for whatever insult or shove was coming next. Tyler's presence cast a long shadow over her, his voice laced with mockery as he spoke. The air in the hallway felt heavier, and in that moment Liam realized something. If he didn't step in now, no one would. The stage was set, the lines were drawn, and for the first time, someone was about to challenge the school's unspoken rules. No one expected it to be him. Ava clutched her books tightly as she walked down the crowded hallway, trying to focus on the path ahead. But just as she approached her locker, a figure stepped in front of her, blocking her way. Tyler. His towering frame cast a shadow over her, his smirk widening as he saw the flicker of hesitation in her eyes. The hallway buzzed with a mixture of energy and tension. Some students slowed their pace, their curiosity piqued, while others turned away, pretending not to notice what was about to unfold. This wasn't the first time Tyler had done this. Well, look who we have here, Tyler sneered, his voice loud enough for everyone nearby to hear. He leaned in slightly, eyes scanning her with mock amusement. You really think you belong here, huh? He reached out, casually twirling a strand of her hair between his fingers before yanking it back. What do you even do to this? Looks like a rat's nest. His group of friends chuckled, their laughter ringing through the hallway. Ava swallowed. Hard, her heart pounding, but she refused to give him the satisfaction of a reaction. She stepped to the side, attempting to move past him, but he shifted with her, keeping her trapped. Going somewhere, he taunted. You know, you should be grateful. We let you walk around here like you belong. But let's be real, you don't. His tone grew sharper, the amusement in his eyes darkening. A few students nearby exchanged uneasy glances, some murmuring under their breath. They had seen this play out before. Tyler picked his victims carefully, the ones who wouldn't fight back, the ones no one would rush to defend. Ava clenched her fists at her sides, keeping her head high as she attempted to step around him again. Don't walk away from me. Before she could react, Tyler shoved her shoulder, making her stumble back a step. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Some students looked entertained, their eyes alight with anticipation, while others froze in place, too afraid to intervene. Ava's breath caught in her throat, but she quickly steadied herself, willing herself to keep moving. Tyler wasn't done. He scoffed, shaking his head. Face it, no one's coming to help you. His voice was laced with cruel amusement. People like you don't belong here. The words hit her harder than the shove, and for a moment, Ava felt her vision blur with the sting of humiliation. She wasn't sure which was worse, the venom in Tyler's words or the silence from everyone else, the lack of a single voice willing to say something, anything, to stop this. Then, in one swift motion, Tyler yanked her backpack from her shoulder and dumped it onto the floor. Books, notebooks, and papers scattered across the hallway tiles. The sound of them hitting the ground echoed louder than she expected. A wave of laughter erupted from a few students while others merely watched, waiting to see how much further this would go. Ava felt something snap inside her. She had spent years pretending not to hear, ignoring the whispers, the stares, the occasional cruel remark. But this was too much. Her voice, steady despite the anger rising in her chest, cut through the noise. Stop it, Tyler. You think this makes you powerful? She met his gaze, her hands balling into fists. All it does is prove how small you really are. A murmur spread through the crowd. A challenge. No one spoke to Tyler like that. For a moment he looked almost surprised. Then his expression twisted into something darker. His hand curled into a fist, muscles tensing as he raised it. The message was clear. He was going to shut her up, the way he always did when words failed him. And then, before he could bring it down, a firm hand caught his wrist mid-air. The hallway fell into complete silence. Liam, the athlete, the guy who usually stayed out of trouble, now stood between them, his grip tight around Tyler's arm. His voice, calm but edged with warning, broke the tension. Enough. The moment stretched, the weight of it sinking into everyone watching. Tyler's jaw tightened, his free hand clenching. He had never been challenged like this before. Would Liam back down, or had the balance of power in the school finally begun to shift? Liam didn't flinch as he tightened his grip on Tyler's wrist, his stance firm as he placed himself between Ava and the looming threat. Tyler's expression twisted in disbelief. No one had ever dared to challenge him like this before. The entire hallway had fallen into an eerie silence, the usual background noise of chatter and footsteps vanishing as every pair of eyes locked onto the confrontation unfolding in front of them. Students froze, watching with a mix of shock and anticipation. Tyler was used to being the one in control, the one who dictated how far things went. But now, someone had disrupted that balance, and the tension in the air was thick enough to cut with a knife. Tyler's lips curled into a mocking grin as he yanked his arm free from Liam's grip, stepping closer to him, their faces mere inches apart. "Stay out of this," he sneered, voice laced with amusement, as if this was nothing more than a minor inconvenience. "It's none of your business." Liam's expression didn't waver. His voice was calm, but there was an unmistakable steel beneath it. "It is my business when someone's getting attacked for no reason." A ripple of murmurs spread through the crowd. Some students exchanged uncertain glances, while others looked at each other, as if trying to decide whether they should intervene or let things play out. Tyler let out a short laugh, shaking his head before giving Liam a hard shove. "What? You gonna be some kind of hero now?" he scoffed. "You think standing up for her makes you special?" Liam barely moved. Unlike the others, he wasn't afraid of Tyler, and that fact alone unsettled the bully. Tyler was used to people backing down, lowering their heads, avoiding eye contact. But Liam stood his ground, unmoved, his jaw set in quiet determination. The power dynamic was shifting, and everyone could feel it. For the first time, some students began to whisper in agreement. "He's right," one voice murmured from the crowd. Another nodded. "Tyler's gone too far this time," but others remained silent, their fear keeping them from taking a stand. Tyler's jaw clenched as he noticed the way the energy in the hallway was changing. This was supposed to be his moment of dominance, yet suddenly the crowd wasn't entirely on his side. His control was slipping, and he hated it. Frustration flashed in his eyes, and before he could think, he balled his fist and swung. The crowd gasped. Liam, quick and focused, dodged just in time, stepping to the side with effortless ease. Tyler's punch sailed through empty air, throwing him off balance. He stumbled slightly, and the laughter that erupted from the watching students made his face burn with humiliation. He had never been the one to miss, never been the one who looked foolish. For the first time, Tyler wasn't the one in control of the situation. Anger flared in his eyes as he turned back toward Liam, his fists tightening, ready to strike again. But before he could make another move, a sharp voice cut through the tension. "That's enough." A teacher stood at the edge of the crowd, his expression thunderous as he took in the scene before him. The moment shattered in an instant. Students took a step back, suddenly aware of the consequences that were about to unfold. Tyler froze, his jaw tightening as he realized he had been caught in the act. Liam exhaled slowly, but he didn't look away. He had done what no one else had dared to do, and judging by the whispers now spreading through the hallway, this school would never be the same again. The moment the teacher's voice rang through the hallway, the tense bubble of silence burst. Students quickly stepped back, some pretending. They hadn't been watching while others stole nervous glances at Tyler, whose cocky demeanor wavered for the first time. The teacher, Mr. Reynolds, a stern yet fair man, pushed through the crowd, his sharp eyes scanning the scene. The scattered books on the floor, Ava standing tense but unbroken, Liam rigid with defiance, and Tyler, his fists still clenched at. His sides. "What's going on here?" Mr. Reynolds demanded, his gaze locking onto Tyler first. Tyler, ever the survivor, straightened his posture and scoffed. "Nothing, just a misunderstanding," he said smoothly, forcing a smirk. "Ava started mouthing off, and I was just putting her in her place." His tone was casual, dismissive, as if he hadn't just tried to swing at someone. Ava's fingers curled into fists at her sides, but before she could respond, Liam stepped forward. His voice was steady, clear, and loud enough for everyone to hear. "That's a lie," he said, his eyes never leaving Tyler's. "Tyler's been picking on Ava for weeks, and today he took it too far. He shoved her, knocked her books over, and was about to hit her before I stopped him." A murmur spread through the crowd. A few students, emboldened by Liam's defiance, spoke up for the first time. "Yeah, I saw it," one voice called out. "Tyler's always doing this." Another student hesitated, then added, "It wasn't Ava's fault. She didn't do anything." Mr. Reynolds' gaze darkened as he turned back to Tyler. "Is that true?" Tyler's smirk faltered for the briefest moment before he scoffed and crossed his arms. "What does it matter?" he muttered. "People like her shouldn't even—" "Enough," Mr. Reynolds cut him off sharply. "I've warned you before, Tyler. This time there will be consequences." For the first time, real panic flashed in Tyler's eyes. He opened his mouth to protest, but Mr. Reynolds placed a firm hand on his shoulder and guided him away from the crowd. The hallway remained hushed, everyone watching as Tyler, for once, didn't have the last word. As they disappeared down the hallway, Liam let out a breath, his hands still balled into fists. Ava knelt down to gather her books, but before she could, Liam crouched beside her, helping pick up the scattered pages. "Are you okay?" he asked. Softly, Ava exhaled, gripping the strap of her bag. "I will be," she admitted, her voice even but tired. Liam hesitated, then said, "I should have stepped in earlier. I saw it happening before today. I just didn't do anything." His voice dropped slightly, guilt edging his words. "My little cousin was bullied at his school. I didn't find out until it was too late, and he had to switch schools. I swore if I ever saw it happening again, I wouldn't stay silent." Ava looked at him carefully before shaking her head. "I appreciate what you did," she said, "but you have to understand. People like me don't get the choice to step in, just once. We fight these battles every day." Liam nodded slowly, the weight of her words sinking in. He realized that speaking up couldn't just be a one-time decision. It had to be a commitment. "I get it," he said sincerely, "and I won't let." It happened again. Ava studied him for a moment, then gave him a small, knowing nod. Around them, students started dispersing, but the atmosphere in the school had shifted. For the first time, Tyler hadn't won, and for the first time, silence hadn't been the only response. The days following the confrontation felt different. The whispers in the hallways no longer carried the same fearful tone. They were filled with discussion, reflection, and, for some, quiet relief. Tyler had been suspended after an investigation confirmed what had happened. His absence was palpable. Where once his presence had dominated the school, a suffocating force that dictated who could speak and who had to shrink away, now there was space. Without him, something shifted. People who had once stayed silent began to realize the weight of their inaction. Conversations sparked about bullying, about standing up, about how easy it had been to look away, until someone had finally done something about it. The school administration didn't waste time. Posters went up about anti-bullying initiatives. New rules were enforced to protect students, and faculty members made it clear that intimidation and harassment would no longer be tolerated. Ava, once used to walking the halls alone, now found that people looked at her differently, not with pity, but with a quiet kind of respect. Some offered her smiles, some simply nodded in acknowledgement, but the biggest change was the feeling that, for the first time, she wasn't fighting alone. She carried herself differently now, not with arrogance, but with confidence. Liam, too, found himself in an unfamiliar position. He had always been respected for his athletic ability, but now people looked at him for something more than his skill on the field. He wasn't just another student blending into the crowd. He had taken a stand, and people had noticed. For the first time, he felt a sense of purpose that wasn't tied to sports or popularity. He had the power to influence others, and he wasn't going to waste it. Tyler's return after serving his suspension was far from triumphant. His usual seat in the cafeteria was empty, his friends now wary of being associated with him. He still carried his usual scowl, but something was different. The way people looked at him had changed. He no longer commanded the same fear. Instead, he was met with indifference, even avoidance. The power he had held over the school was slipping through his fingers, and for the first time, he was the one left standing alone. Later that day, as Ava sat outside beneath a tree, flipping through a book, Liam approached her. He hesitated for a moment before sitting down next to her. "You okay?" he asked. Ava looked up, then nodded. "Better than before," she admitted. She closed her book, studying him for a moment. "You know, what you did back there, it mattered. But one good deed doesn't erase privilege." Liam nodded, already knowing what she meant. "I get that," he said. "I know stepping in once doesn't fix everything, but I'm not going to stop here." He met her gaze, sincerity in his voice. "I'll do more. I'll keep standing up, not just for you, but for anyone who needs it." Ava considered his words, then gave a small smile. "Good," she said simply. The school would never be perfect, but for the first time in a long time it felt like change wasn't just possible. It had already begun. True strength isn't in fists. It's in the courage to stand up when no one else will. In a world where silence often enables injustice, it takes just one voice to break the cycle. Liam's choice to step in that day didn't just change the course of events for Ava. It shifted the entire culture of his school. It proved that standing up, even when it's uncomfortable, has the power to change lives. But the question remains, how many people would have stood there and done nothing? How often do we witness moments like this and convince ourselves it's not our fight? Have you ever witnessed bullying? What would you have done in Liam's place? Do you think bullies can change? Or is their cruelty a reflection of something deeper? Share your thoughts in the comments. We want to hear from you. And if you believe in standing against injustice, hit that like button and share this story so more people understand the power of speaking up. Don't forget to subscribe for more powerful, real-life stories. You won't want to miss what's next.